The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. Chapter-by-chapter summary. Prologue. Olive Smith is applying for the biology PhD program at Stanford. After her interview with Dr. Izagal Aslan, she finds herself in a nearby bathroom, struggling to rinse out her eyes from expired contacts. While there, she encounters the guy, whom she believes is a PhD student. They chat, and she introduces herself as Olive, sharing her motivation for applying to the program and her research interests. A few weeks later, she receives the exciting news that she has been accepted into the program. Chapter 1. 2 years, 11 months later, Olive is 26 years old and a PhD student in Dr. Aslan's lab. In a moment of desperation to convince her best friend that she's on a date, she kisses a stranger only to discover that the stranger is Dr. Adam Carlson, a 34-year-old professor known for his notoriously moody and critical demeanor. When they pull apart, Adam accuses Olive of assaulting him. She insists that she asked for his consent, but he claims he only snorted. Olive explains that she's trying to help who feels guilty about dating a guy named Jeremy that Olive had broken up with. To ease On's feelings, Olive fabricated a story about dating someone else and arranged to meet him that night. When On arrived at the lab, Olive had to kiss someone to sell the lie. After apologizing, Olive leaves, unaware that Adam had referred to her by name. Chapter 2. A few days later, Olive is still mortified by her encounter with Adam. She figures they probably never cross paths again. This allows her to move on. However, she's preoccupied with finding more lab space for her research on early pancreatic cancer detection. She learns that Tom Benton, a prominent cancer researcher and associate professor at Harvard, is interested in letting her conduct her research in his lab. He plans to meet with her in 2 weeks. When On sees Olive, she immediately confronts her about kissing Adam Carlson. Olive reflects on how they met. On has always been her biggest supporter and best friend. On wants to know why Olive is dating Dr. Carlson, but their conversation is interrupted when Adam enters. He plays along, pretending that he and Olive are a couple. After formal introductions, he tells her to call him Adam when On is around. Later, Olive continues the charade with On, encouraging her to date with Jeremy. As Olive goes about campus, she notices people treating her with an air of curiosity. When her roommate Malcolm asks why she didn't mention dating Dr. Carlson, Olive realizes everyone knows about her fabrication. She concerns and visits Adam in his lab to explain and apologize. She notices he seems comfortable with the rumors and wonders why. Adam reveals that Stanford considers him a flight risk due to his interest in leaving for another institution, which has led to frozen research funds. His recent large grant from a collaborator at another school has raised concerns, and he hopes the dating rumors will make the department believe he's more likely to stay because of his relationship with Olive. Chapter 3. A few days later, Olive visits Adam's office and tells him she wants to go ahead with their plan to pretend they're dating. She realizes that since the rumor began, she's been treated much better by everyone except for Malcolm, who disapproves of Adam and has been distancing himself from her. Adam explains that he's researched the situation and found no issues, but he clarifies that he can't serve in any supervisory role for her or be part of her thesis committee while they're dating. They establish some ground rules for their fake dating arrangement. They agree to keep it strictly on campus, avoiding personal engagements, and Olive insists there will be no sexual involvement. They also decide not to date anyone else during this period to keep things simple. They plan to have regular coffee dates to maintain the illusion. Also, they agree to continue this for a month, until September 29th, which is the day after the department's budget review. Later, Olive talks to Malcolm, who remains upset with her. Coming from a lineage of renowned scientists, he resents Adam for his critical feedback that has made his life harder. Olive confides in Malcolm that her relationship with Adam is purely a facade and that she barely knows him. She explains that Adam is just helping her navigate the situation with On and Jeremy. Chapter 4. On Wednesday, Olive and Adam go on their first fake date at the coffee house. They ask each other some basic questions, and Adam covers the cost of her order. The following week, they meet again, but Olive is running late because she's preparing for a meeting with Tom Benton later that day. Adam is in a bit of a mood, frustrated that his department chair hasn't approved the release of his research funds. They discuss attending the upcoming fall biosciences picnic together so Adam's chair can see them as a couple. Their conversation is interrupted when one of Adam's friends walks in and greets him warmly. Adam introduces the man to Olive as his friend and collaborator, revealing that it's actually Tom Benton. Chapter 5. Dr. Benton expresses surprise at hearing about Adam's romantic life all the way from Harvard and is intrigued that the rumors about Adam's new girlfriend are true. Olive awkwardly mentions that they have a meeting planned for later that day, which delights Tom to learn is with Adam's girlfriend. The three of them sit down to chat, and as Tom asks Olive about her research, Adam helps her articulate her thoughts when he notices she's struggling. Olive explains her work on biomarkers to diagnose pancreatic cancer more easily and affordably. When Tom probes further about her motivations, Olive hesitantly reveals that her mother had pancreatic cancer. Tom then asks Olive to spend 2 weeks writing a report on her research's current status. He indicates that he'll decide whether to provide her lab space and cover her research expenses based on what he reads. Once Tom steps away, Olive and Adam discuss the implications if she chooses to go to Harvard, agreeing that she should keep it a secret until their arrangement ends, as it could reflect poorly on Adam. They also agree not to tell Tom that their relationship is fake. Chapter 6. The next day, Olive attends a talk by Tom on campus, where the auditorium is so packed that there's no seating available. On persuades Olive to sit in Adam's lap for the duration of the talk. Afterward, Olive and On head back to the biology building. Olive shares her plans for the report she's preparing for Tom and discusses the presentation she needs to finalize for the upcoming SBD conference in Boston. As they walk back, they encounter a traffic jam caused by a car blocking an exit. They spot Sherry, the department secretary, chatting with Adam, who then unexpectedly pushes the car out of the way to clear the jam. On nudges Olive to go over and give him a kiss in appreciation for his efforts. After a bit of awkward negotiation, Olive leans in, and they kiss. Chapter 7. Olive is deep into her report for Tom when Greg Cohen bursts in. He is one of Dr. Aslan's other PhD candidates. And, another lab mate Chase, follows him in with an uneasy demeanor. When Olive asks Greg what's wrong, he angrily reveals that Adam is on his dissertation committee and he failed his proposal. They question Olive about whether she knew Greg was going to fail, and she firmly insists she didn't. In a fit of rage, Greg accuses Olive of being selfish for not caring about how Adam makes everyone's lives difficult before storming out. Later that day, Olive texts Adam to confront him about Greg's failure. She argues that he should be more supportive, but Adam remains unapologetic, insisting that his responsibility is to ensure students produce valuable research. Olive gets frustrated, and responds with some harsh language, but Adam doesn't reply. A few days later, Olive heads to the biosciences picnic, anxious about seeing Adam after their heated exchange. She goes with On, Jeremy, and Malcolm, and they arrive quite late. Upon arrival, they spot Adam playing ultimate frisbee shirtless, showcasing his six-pack. Olive is taken aback by her unexpected attraction to him. While they apply sunscreen, On accidentally applies too much to Olive. As luck would have it, the frisbee from the game lands nearby. When Adam comes over to retrieve it, On offers Olive's excess sunscreen to him. He accepts, and Olive finds herself rubbing sunscreen on him, apologizing for her earlier texts in the process. Just then, Tom approaches and mentions that Adam will be heading to Boston soon for a few days. Chapter 8. One night, Olive finds herself in the break room working on her report for Tom when she runs into Adam. She's struggling with a section due to some issues with her lab equipment. They chat and share snacks. Olive starts to wonder why he's still single. As their conversation deepens, Olive opens up about her mother and her experience with loss. She shares how her mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer too late and only had a few weeks left to live when she was 15. With her father absent and her grandparents deceased, Olive explains that she ended up in the foster system until she was emancipated at 16. When Olive mentions needing to get back to her work, Adam offers her access to his lab equipment if she needs it and provides helpful advice on the Western blot technique she's using. Just as Olive is about to ask Adam why he's single, Jeremy walks in and interrupts their moment. Chapter 9. On Saturday, Olive submits her report to Tom. He replies quickly, asking to meet at Adam's house on Tuesday to discuss it before he heads to Boston. When she arrives at Adam's place, she and Tom chat about her report for about 20 minutes. Tom surprises her by offering her a spot at Harvard for the next year, and Olive is overjoyed. Afterward, Adam gives her a ride back to campus, excitedly discussing the research he and Tom are collaborating on. During their conversation, Adam mentions something about the guy from that bathroom encounter years ago had said, and Olive suddenly realizes that Adam is the guy she'd been curious about for so long. Eager to celebrate her new lab position and their upcoming grant, Olive suggests they go out for coffee. Before that, she manages to convince him to join her for flu shots at a campus setup, teasing him about his fear of needles along the way. Chapter 10. On Wednesday, while Olive and Adam are playfully texting each other, On walks in and remarks on how in love Olive seems with Adam. She shares that seeing Olive's feelings makes her feel better about dating Jeremy. As On leaves, Olive realizes that On might be right. Shortly after, Olive texts Malcolm, asking to meet. When they sit down together, she confides that she thinks she's fallen for Adam and mentions that he might be the guy she met all those years ago. Malcolm suggests that Adam might feel the same way, but Olive is doubtful. She expresses her fear of being vulnerable and the possibility of losing the friendship they currently have if she's wrong. She also shares her deep-seated fear of abandonment, citing her mother, father, and grandparents. Olive insists she doesn't want to confess her feelings to Adam. Just then, she turns around and sees him standing right there. Chapter 11. When Adam says he overheard Olive, she quickly lies, saying she was talking about another guy she has a crush on. Their conversation is soon interrupted by Dr. Holden Rodriguez, who is heading to Boston with Tom and Adam. Holden, who knows Olive from her first year when he was on her graduate advisory committee, greets them warmly. As they chat, Holden shares that he and Adam are old friends. He recounts a story about how his boyfriend dumped him right before prom, and Adam stepped in to be his date instead. After Holden leaves, Adam comments that Holden speaks highly of Olive and her research. He also mentions something Holden said about Tom, revealing that the two don't really get along. Then, in a misinterpretation, Adam encourages Olive to tell Jeremy how she feels, mistakenly assuming that her mystery crush is Jeremy. Chapter 12. Malcolm keeps pushing Olive to confess her feelings for Adam, but she remains unwilling. With Adam away, she misses him. When he finally texts her on Sunday, her guilt about lying about liking someone else intensifies. On campus, she bumps into Holden. He says he is happy that Adam and Olive are together. He mentions that Adam had been interested in someone for years and is pleased he finally made a move. This makes Olive wonder if Adam has someone else in mind since they've only known each other for a few weeks. Holden also cautions her to be careful of Tom, as he doesn't trust him. Later, Olive learns that her research has been accepted for a panel presentation at the SBD conference, a rare achievement for a graduate student. Feeling overwhelmed, she confides in her advisor, Dr. Aslan, about her fear of public speaking. Dr. Aslan encourages her and offers to help her prepare. Afterward, Olive shares the news with Malcolm and On, who also volunteer to help her practice. However, they mention that they've both been invited to stay with friends in Boston during the conference, implying Olive might stay with Adam instead. Chapter 13. Olive is trying to arrange her accommodations for Boston when Adam came back in town. She mentions her struggles to find a place to stay, and Adam suggests that most options are likely gone by now. However, he offers her his room at the conference center. He has it booked for the entire event but will only be using it for 2 nights, so they'll probably only overlap for 1 night. When she shares details about her presentation, Adam offers to review her slides. Olive invites him to her talk and reflects on how much she appreciates that he always seems to support her. Chapter 14. At the hotel in Boston, Olive takes the empty bed and practices her upcoming presentation. When Adam arrives, she thanks him for his help. He asks about the timing of her presentation so he can attend, but she realizes it coincides with the keynote speech he's giving alongside two others. She offers to share the recording with him later. When Olive goes to deliver her panel presentation, she spots Tom on the same panel. Her presentation goes well, with Malcolm and on there to support her. After everyone leaves, she finds herself alone with Tom. During their conversation, he inches closer and tries to kiss her. When she pushes him away, he persists, making hurtful comments about her being someone who sleeps around to get ahead. He insinuates that her panel selection was just a favor to Adam and claims that he only accepted her into his lab because of Adam's influence. When Olive threatens to tell Adam, Tom says Adam won't believe her. She asserts that she won't work in his lab, but Tom counters that he'll simply replicate her research since he already knows it well. When Adam returns to the hotel, he finds Olive in tears. She attempts to hide her distress but ultimately lies, telling him she's upset because she overheard someone calling her research derivative and suggesting she was only chosen because of him. Adam comforts her and suggests an alternative plan for where they should go next. Chapter 15. Holding Olive's hand, Adam leads her away from the bustling department social to a nearby sushi restaurant that she spots. After dinner, as they walk back, Olive's heels start to hurt, so Adam playfully picks her up and carries her to their room. Once there, Olive suggests watching a movie. She heads for a quick shower, and Adam offers her a t-shirt since she forgot to pack pajamas. As Olive's thoughts drift back to Tom's harsh words about her being mediocre, which she keeps to herself, Adam shares a story about his own struggles. He recounts how an advisor once told him he wouldn't succeed due to a mistake he made, which led him to consider law school. That comment shook his confidence, but Holden and Tom, who had also been under that advisor, encouraged him to stay in science. Adam reflects on how he later realized his advisor was abusive, creating a toxic atmosphere. He emphasizes that while he can be critical, it's aimed at helping students improve, not tearing down their self-worth. He also notes that no one reported his advisor's behavior because of his prestigious standing, mentioning Tom's role in helping mediate their issues. He reassures Olive that the abstracts for the SBD conference go through a blind review process, so her selection had nothing to do with him. As Olive leans in to kiss Adam, he stops her. He says that she's upset and that their situation feels coercive. Even after she insists she's fine, he recalls her earlier admission of being in love with someone else and expresses a desire to avoid regrets. Eventually, Olive persuades him that she's genuinely comfortable, and they get intimate. Chapter 16. They have sex. Chapter 17. Olive inquires about a book Adam is reading. He explains that it's in Dutch and that he learned it during his childhood. He adds that his parents were often busy, so he was primarily raised by au pairs. During their discussion, Adam reveals to Olive that he might be attending Harvard. He's leaving the conference early for an interview there and believes collaborating with Tom in the same lab would significantly boost their productivity. He also offers to show her around Boston when she visits. Chapter 18. Olive wakes up to a flood of texts from On and Malcolm. When she finally connects with them, she learns that Malcolm hooked up with Holden at the department social. He also mentions that Holden said Adam's funding had been approved, even though Adam hadn't mentioned it to Olive. That evening, Olive meets Adam, who suggests they go out for dinner. However, Olive decides to end things with him because she's unsure how to handle the situation with Tom. She believes that stepping back is the best choice for Adam. As she begins to leave, they share a kiss, but he pulls away, and she walks out. Chapter 19. Olive spends the following day in tears. Determined not to end up at Harvard, she decides to take Adam's advice and reaches out through her advisor, asking Dr. Aslan to email various contacts she met at the conference about her research. Dr. Aslan agrees and requests to see Olive's speech. While editing the video, she hears Malcolm discussing his first date with Holden, which took an awkward turn when they ran into Holden's entire science enthusiast family at a conference. As Olive edits, she realizes she recorded her conversation with Tom. Malcolm and On hear her listening to it, and once they finish, they insist she needs to tell Adam. Malcolm explains the situation between Olive and Adam to On. They both agree that it's clear Olive has feelings for Adam and he deserves to know. However, Olive worries about complicating things for Adam, regarding his collaboration with Tom. They decide to call Holden for advice. Olive asks Holden what he thinks about Adam moving to Boston to work with Tom. Holden says he doesn't trust Tom, suggesting that he might have sabotaged Adam during grad school while pretending to support him. He believes Tom enjoys having influence over Adam and that their collaboration ultimately benefits Tom more. Holden also hints that Adam might only be considering leaving Stanford because Olive plans to go to Harvard. Chapter 20. Olive tracks down Adam at a dinner with some Harvard colleagues, including Tom. When Adam sees her, he stands up and asks if something is wrong. Tom approaches, trying to get Adam to sit back down, but Adam insists on speaking with Olive. Olive plays the video, and Adam's anger escalates as he realizes what happened. He angrily tells he's going to confront him, but Olive stops him, saying it's not worth it. As the Harvard attendees demand an explanation, Adam disregards them and kisses Olive. He then asks her to send him the recording right away before turning back to the Harvard group to continue the conversation. Chapter 21. A few days later, Olive is back home while Adam is heading back to San Francisco. In the meantime, Olive has received replies from 4 cancer researchers interested in her work. When Adam returns, Holden pushes for a double date, and Adam reluctantly agrees. As they sit down, they acknowledge Malcolm's lingering doubts about Adam due to his past harsh critiques of Malcolm's work. Adam assures him that it wasn't personal. While they joke about pumpkin spice-flavored foods, Holden casually mentions that Adam has liked Olive for years. Olive interjects, clarifying that they've only been dating for a few weeks, but Holden insists they met 3 years ago and that Adam has had feelings for Olive since then. At that moment, Olive realizes that Adam was indeed the guy from 3 years ago and that he has remembered her all along. Chapter 22. After dinner, Olive and Adam head home. Adam reveals that Harvard plans to fire Tom and take further disciplinary actions. Olive then shares that she also remembered him from years ago, although she didn't connect the dots until later and kept it to herself when she finally did. At last, she tells him she loves him, in broken Dutch. Epilogue. 10 months later, it's the 1-year anniversary of their first kiss. Olive and Adam head to the lab to recreate that special moment. They kiss at exactly the same time as they did last year.